This episode is brought to you by Love Hurts. Kiwi Kwan has had quite a career, from childhood roles in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and The Goonies to a recent Academy Award win for Everything Everywhere All at Once. But now Ki finally stars as a leading man in the film Love Hurts. Love Hurts is the perfect date night movie with its mix of over-the-top action, comedy, and a ton of heart. Love Hurts, only at theaters February 7th.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouth-watering meals. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices. Plus, extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with points. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Hey Atlanta, say hello to small business help from Apple. That's right, we're here to make starting and running your business simpler. From helping you choose the right devices to setting them up hassle-free, we can help you build your business in no time. Speak to a business expert and get the help you need at no cost whatsoever. At Apple, we're open for your small business. Go to apple.com/small business or visit an Apple store to learn more.
Hello and welcome to Islanders Anxiety from Lighthouse Hockey and the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Darren Saracini. Joining me on this Monday evening via Zencaster is my friend Michael Leboff. And Mike, you and I spoke yesterday, and we are back today to discuss another couple of guys going on IR, another surprise addition on the blue line in what's becoming a very bizarre and very surreal season for the New York Islanders. We have, I think, at this point gone past the roller coaster designation and are now into the twilight zone. Like now we're into what is happening right now with this team and why do these guys keep showing up that we did not expect would show up at any point in any season, let alone in the same season.
Yes, exactly. This thing has gone into like some wormhole somewhere. And I've started to think, like, you try to relate one season to another, and at best case scenario, this is the 2006-2007 season, right, where it's guys coming in through very strange situations. Hell, we did an episode with Darren Quint, a Weird Islanders episode about Darren Quint, featuring guest host Darren Quint, Phoenix. That's Phoenix Police Department, Phoenix Police Officer Darren Quint to you. So go ahead and listen to that because we get into that 2006-07 season in all its glory. And that year obviously ended on a high note with the miracle run to the playoffs and all that. But I think it was what really defined that season to me and what made it so seared into my memory and what I hold in such high regard is exactly what you said. Guys just kept showing up.
Right.
Like different guys just kept showing up in that season that I never would have in a million years, like, related to the Islanders. And it really started with, before the season started, with two guys who were known as Rangers. One being Mike York, who was only there for a little bit this season. That season, he was with the Islanders for 70-something games. So he's a holdover from the previous season. But they signed Chris Simon too, a former Rangers enforcer. Tom Pody, another former Ranger, showed up as well. Like, that's to start the season. And from there, you had just a ridiculous cast of characters come through those doors. And Richard Zednik came. He played for 2 games and was like, I don't want to be here. Went home to Slovakia. Then the Islanders made the playoffs. He's like, actually, I kind of want to come back. Randy Robitaille came back for his second tour.
Right.
Sean Hill got suspended.
Yeah.
Then they had to go to Germany, and we covered this in the Quint thing, so I don't want to go too deep. But like they tried to sign Todd Simpson, didn't work out because he was suspended in Germany, so they had to settle on Quint. Darren Quint comes in. I mean, they acquired Ryan freaking Smith that season, right? Like it was just a ridiculous season for the Islanders. And everyone thinks the defining moment, well, it was the Dublowitz, and I mean Wade Dublowitz. Marcus Hogberg is about 8 feet taller than Wade Dublowitz, but he would be like the Wade Dublowitz of the story, I guess, right now.
Right.
Wade Dublowitz's poke check is like the moment of that season, but really what it was is the list of guys that came through the doors that season. If you go onto their hockey reference page, the Islanders that year iced 36 skaters.
My God.
And it also what also reminds me, this season reminds me of that season as well. At this point, not just that, but also that it was happening, and the only people who really know the true story of it are Islander fans, like how ridiculous this season was. So I should say they iced 34 skaters that season, I think, and then 2 goalies is how it shook out, or 3 goalies. This season, the Islanders are at 29 skaters already and 3 goalies. So
they're at 32.
Are they 32?
According to hockey reference, where I am at right now, they're at 32.
Oh my God. It's not like we're so that season was Twilight Zone shit. And it ended up with the Islanders having a little bit of a happy ending. This season, who knows? I mean, they're against the odds again. That season, they probably had like a 2% chance to make the playoffs with 4 games remaining, and they ended up doing it. This year, most models and bookmakers have around 25%, but it's starting to take shape to be similar. It's we're seeing guys who I never in a million years would have thought would be stepping on the ice in wearing Islander jerseys. So I mean, at this point, I've just kind of given up on trying to make sense of it or make sense of what's coming, and I'm just gonna be like, all right, I'll just wake up tomorrow and see what happens.
Right. Yeah. I was thinking this morning that for probably the first third or so of the season, our weirdest Islander of the year competition, which would come up, towards the end of the season, was basically Julien Gautier's Toulouse. It was his thing. Like he was probably going to win it. He could have won it last year, but he didn't. It was his he did play 1 game for them this year, so it was his Toulouse. And now, boy, the competition has heated up immensely, and there are enough guys here that really they're going to give him a run for his money. He might not even finish in the top 3. We'll have to see.
He might not even get nominated anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're going to talk about 2 of the newest Islanders tonight. And before we do all that, reminder that we're on Patreon, of course, at patreon.com/Islanders Anxiety. Membership gets you ad-free episodes of shows like this, plus bonus podcasts like our Mailbag and Country Club Atmosphere, written posts like my book club and 10 Game Thoughts, and a whole lot more. Or you can just sign up for free and get our weekly release calendar and announcements. So sign up today at patreon.com/Islanders Anxiety. So we're going to talk just this one time about these 2 players, and maybe we'll get back later to, again, the surrealness of this entire season and how, these guys just keep popping up. And we might as well take care of the first guy who's already here and has already played for the Islanders first. We did our episode yesterday, and we purposefully didn't really mention Tony DeAngelo because we kind of thought that by not mentioning Tony DeAngelo, we would be saying everything that we wanted to say about Tony DeAngelo being on the Islanders right now. And then we did that, and we were both in agreement with that. And then today we had a number of people be like, hey, how come you guys didn't talk about Tony? So once the second acquisition of Scott Perunovich happened later on, we were like, okay, now we might as well. Our hand has been forced. So here we are. And obviously by now, Tony DeAngelo signed on Friday after being released from the KHL. There have been some really eloquently put reactions to this. I listened to Sean and Stefan this morning on Hockey Night New York. I like the way they talked about it. Check it out if you haven't already. Obviously, it's on podcasts and YouTube everywhere. I thought they did a really good job of breaking the whole thing down, so I don't want to kind of trample on what they said. And basically, the only thing I kind of want to say about DeAngelo being on the Islanders right now is that, like, I keep coming back to this analogy of if my boss had said to me, hey, we've got an open position here and we need to fill it. We got to find somebody. What do you think of this person here? And then he handed me a resume that kind of read like Tony DeAngelo's, where it was full of suspensions and scratchings and buyouts and waivers and trades and incidents and engagements, not to mention what seems like a personal enjoyment of antagonizing people anywhere and everywhere. I probably would look at that candidate and that resume and be like, I don't think this is going to work out. And if my boss then said to me, well, guess what? We've just hired them. I would have to say, okay, well, I guess we're going to have to make it work and we're going to have to hope for the best because I have no plans on leaving. And that applies to this show. I have no plans on leaving. We have no plans on stopping doing this. We were here before Tony DeAngelo got here. We will be here long after he has left and is a memory and possibly an episode of Weird Islanders, the podcast. So all we can do right now is hope for the best, hope it works out, obviously, on the ice. And maybe along the way, we learn something about humanity and things end up being okay. The first game, we'll talk about his first game with the Islanders and their win against the Hurricanes a little bit later. But yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I just hope it's okay. Do I like the guy? No. As Frank Costanza would say, this is not my kind of guy. But he's here now. We have to make the best of it, and hopefully we can all coexist. So now I'll turn it over to you and get your thoughts on the acquisition, which really came out. Oh, one other thing I got to say, when I got your text, and we were on a group chat, and your text was like, no way. And another friend of ours was like, oh, my God. I thought they had acquired Elias Pettersson. Like, so I got to tell you, I was really shocked when I went to the Islanders website and I was like, huh? So that would talk about a roller coaster. That was really talk about, a lot of emotions in that 30-second span of, oh, come on, really?
Yeah. Actually, I really liked your analogy there. Very well put. And yeah, I thought it was funny. Well, I guess the joke didn't land, right? I thought part of the reason that the glossing over of Tony DeAngelo signing and us not saying, really giving any analysis or trying to make any sense of it in yesterday's podcast was that the discourse around this player is so exhausting.
Yeah.
That I was like, maybe people appreciate that we just treat the 11th defenseman of the season, a number 6 defenseman on this team, as if he was just called up from Bridgeport. The joke didn't land. We put our hands up. It wasn't. Maybe it was a little too. We got too cheeky. I thought you said it on the Patreon. It was like a pretentious podcaster move. So that's on us. I apologize for it, but here we are now with our first ever addendum episode. And I think I couldn't have said it better in terms of how I would look at it. The things I will say, and if you've been listening to the show, you probably have an idea of that Tony DeAngelo and you and me, we look at the world in a very different way from one another. But I will say, I do think that the baggage that this player is carrying, it has been swirled up in some sort of crazy online, like cosplaying thing, and it's gotten to it almost just it jumped. I mean, it jumped the shark a long time ago and continued to, and it became exhausting, and I just never even wanted to think about. Because I never really like to think about the player because I was like, he's never going to be an Islander.
Yeah.
Nor do I ever want him to be an Islander. And it has nothing to do, like it, of course, I guess a little bit with his personality, but also I hated Tony DeAngelo when he was on the Rangers. Like I hated him. And
the Hurricanes and the
Flyers. And I was like, oh, God, like this is, it's nice to know that a player that I hated that much would never end up here. That said, you also you have to realize how we got here. The Islanders have had just a litany of injuries that just continues on the blue line.
Yeah.
And they've had the 32nd best power play in the league, and that 32nd best power play in the league lost its point man a couple games ago. like they really had no other choice but to address this issue if they wanted to continue the season. I can't watch Dennis Cholowski try to run a power play anymore. I just can't. And I don't think Lou Lamoriello can, and it meant that he had to really go ahead and make a move. The other thing I'll say, and I'm not trying to defend or anything like that. I spoke to a friend of mine who works down in Raleigh in the hockey media down there, and he was telling me how like the players all love this guy in the room, and then it's like the friction is always between the like the coaching staff or with the front office and whatever. And this doesn't make me like him anymore, but his like best friend is Vincent Trocheck apparently. But anyways, there's all this to glean over. But the point is what you said, like he's now on the Islanders. He had a very normal debut. Like it really reminded me of the Anthony Duclair thing that happened over the offseason quite a bit.
Right.
Whereas like there's all this like annoying, there's very valid discourse to be had. But the problem is that conversation is not happening in front of everyone on Twitter with people dunk tweeting and you know, Scott Wheeler getting up on his soapbox.
Right.
And then Gordon Miller getting involved. Like that isn't helping anybody. The real conversations like you're having are with your sane friends and you're talking about it and whatever. And then Duclair showed up and nobody made a peep about it ever again because they started playing games. And so there's all this, you know, stuff going on with DeAngelo that he played, and everyone's like, all right, move on. He played 25 minutes. He played very normally well. And because of the way this player is talked about, you almost expected him to like step onto the ice with his skates on his hands and be like, oh yeah, this guy is crazy. What's he doing? But he just like played a very competent game. He made a couple nice passes. His skill set certainly is what the Islanders needed on that power play, I think. So we'll see. I mean, I don't have any faith that it's going to work out gangbusters at all because he was not very good in Carolina. He couldn't find a contract in the NHL this season to start. But as you said, we'll find. Maybe we'll learn something along the way. And I don't know, man. I just hope that he helps the Islanders win hockey games, and then I'll just leave it at that, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And again, the game he played on Saturday against Carolina was a very normal game. I mean,
just so normal.
Right. Like in fairness to him, he had not practiced. He said after the game, like, I haven't even met these guys yet. I'm going to go meet them now. This is after he played the game, like 25 minutes of the game. So like, you know, he said that. I was like, wow, yeah.
He's like, what's a Simon Holmstrom?
Right. Yeah, he's definitely, you know,
heard of that guy.
He said
played against him in the playoffs last year, but he still didn't realize.
I mean, when he said I've played against them, I'm sure he meant like Lee Nelson and Barzell. I don't know about these other guys, right? Even Sorokin probably. So, you know, that made me think, yeah, I guess that's true. And he just played a very normal game. And that, again, getting back to yesterday's podcast, that was kind of another one of our ideas, was like, he's just here now. And it's just normal now. Like you said, it's, you know, once the online, you know, hullabaloo has died down, he's just here now. And just the way he was here in Carolina and here in Philly, you know. So that's all we can do right now is just you know, watch and see what happens. And you know, there was a lot of discourse about people saying, I'm done with this team, I've had it, I'm out. And I don't blame you, frankly. You know, I mean, even if they hadn't acquired Tony DeAngelo, I would already be out. But you know, if I was watching this team, they would have driven me crazy. But you know, we don't have that luxury. We are here, and that's what I meant to say. It's like, we're not going anywhere. Like, we have done this show through a pandemic. We've done it through personal and team heartbreak. We've done it through good seasons, bad seasons. You've had 2 kids while doing the course of this show. Like, you know, we've gone through a lot on this show, and you know, Tony DeAngelo is not going to stop us from doing what we love to do. So here we are, and here he is, and you know, we'll see how it goes. I'm with you. I don't think it's going to work out long term. He has no trade protection or anything, and you know, if the Islanders do start losing games, maybe they start making trades, and maybe he ends up someplace else and his Islanders time is even more brief, but we'll have to see. Now, that being said, we can move on to the other reason that we're doing this podcast, which is another injury, like you just said, on the blue line, which necessitated another move by Lou Lamoriello. This time it was Ryan Pulock. We talked about this, his possible, maybe sort of slew foot at the hands of Jackson Blake in the game against Carolina. He is out now.
Said this, he was listening. He said the same thing we did. He's like, yeah, it's looked like a slew foot to me.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm not going to argue with Patrick Waugh, right? So,
right.
Yeah. But so he's out now. Also, Marcus Hogberg is now on IR. Those two guys hit IR immediately.
They're going to get another goalie. That's the I mean, maybe Varley's back, but don't be surprised if tomorrow we're back on this thing talking about the island and doing another show, being like, Andy Chiodo is on Long Island.
They mentioned Keith Kincaid on Hockey Night in New York, and I'm like, right. That would be funny. Bring him back,
that's
man.
Right. That's
Why not?
Right. I forgot he was here.
Yeah, right, exactly. So,
you'd have to wear number 60, right? Because they go up in 10, so 30, 40, 50, and then it would be 60.
I mean, that's against the rules. We'll have to see. I mean, maybe they I don't know. They give him Varley's old number. I don't know. We don't know where Varlamov
Where's
is.
Varley? Yeah, well, you were making that joke about Dobson yesterday about how he's going to be like ethered out of existence. And I when I was going to bed last night, I was like, yeah, that's true. And that's kind of happened already to Varlamov, who we just have not heard from. And we hear the same thing. Oh, he's skating on his own, which is just Islander speak for got no idea where he is. He's on his ranch in West Texas.
I said on Blue Sky that he has entered the injured Islanders protection program. We have no idea where he is. This is even tighter than the witness protection program. He's given a new name, a new address, a new family. We'll never see him until he's ready to play. But it doesn't sound like he is. So they might, Eric Comrie, come on down. Or who's that other guy? Aaron Dell. Come on down.
Aaron Dell. Yeah. Oh my God. The famous James Myrtle, Aaron Dell escapades. Man, that was the shortened season. And I can remember James Myrtle talking about doing like 1,000 words on how that was a shrewd, a tidy piece of business.
That's
getting
right.
a third goalie like that. And then 2 weeks later, he was on waivers and claimed by somebody else.
I forgot to mention, by the way, in that when we were talking about that trade, that retaining somebody else's salary so that you could reclaim your own third round pick in exchange for one of your own players is maybe the untidiest piece of business we've ever seen. But that's Kyle Davidson's problem. But in any event, so with Pulock out, the Islanders needed another defenseman. I know, go figure. And so they countered this move by trading for St. Louis Blues defenseman Scott Perunovich. Now, this guy's not a household name. He's not Alex Pietrangelo. He's not what's the other guy? Colton Parayko. I completely forgot that Cam Fowler was a Blue now. Thank you, Dom, for pointing that out in the write-up that you did on Perunovich today. So I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I forgot they got Cam Fowler. So, but he was a pretty high pick. He was a second round pick in 2018, 45th overall. And I completely forgot about this. Scott Perunovich at one point won the Hobey Baker trophy for the best player in the NCAA. And not that I have like an encyclopedic knowledge of Hobey Baker winners. I definitely would never have picked Scott Perunovich out of that, big thing. He's no Jason Krog. Let's put it that way.
Right.
And so he had all these sort of bona fides coming through college, but none of them have really translated that much in the pros. We'll get into that in a few minutes. He's 5'10". He's not the biggest guy in the world, but just like all the sort of offensive stuff that he was known for in college just hasn't manifested in the NHL. And he has been riddled with injuries. He lost an entire season basically to his shoulder injury. He's had other, Dom said every time he started, it seemed like he got going, he would get hurt. The Blues would find somebody else, put them in the lineup, and then he would lose that spot. And that's sort of what happened this year. There's another guy they called up that kind of took his spot. So, on one hand, it's a conditional 5th round pick in next year's draft. Who cares? It doesn't matter. Like, it's fine. Whatever the condition is, we don't know. Maybe just that he, plays all the rest of the season. We have absolutely no idea. That he doesn't get hurt like every other Islanders defenseman. Maybe that's the condition. We'll never know. But maybe, and Dom pointed this out too, and it made me feel good about thinking it myself. This guy could turn into, maybe if we're lucky, another sort of Thomas Hickey type. A guy who's, a normal sized human being, high draft pedigree, doesn't translate to the NHL, doesn't really get much of a chance, comes to the Islanders and turns into a pretty darn good defenseman and a guy who ends up being, a top 4 player and a pretty indispensable one at that. Now, Am I projecting all this on Scott Perunovich? Yes, I am. But at this point, again, he's here and we have to make the best of this. So hopefully he can find some purchase here and make it a go of it. But again, this was another one. I get a text from you and you're like, Lou. And I'm like, oh no, now what? And it's like, Scott Perunovich. Well, I didn't even know he was still in the league.
Yeah,
I mean,
you thought it was a DeAngelo extension. He got the Brian Strait treatment.
No.
One game. All right, 3-year extension.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I actually was pretty excited about this one. And you say he's not a household name. I got to disagree with you there, because if you were a listener to 32 Thoughts since 2020,
oh yeah,
you would think that Scott Perunovich was up there with Quinn Hughes and Cale Makar. The way they're like, I swear to God, once an episode you'd be like, and I wonder about Scott Perunovich is
Right.
if he's going to get a chance, or if he's, the Blues really like him, they don't want to give him up for nothing. And as soon as somebody one of the professional liars says that team doesn't want to give up player for nothing, you can be rest assured they're going to give him up for nothing soon.
Yeah.
Hey, we saw it with Oliver Wahlstrom.
Yes.
Already. They don't want to give him up for nothing.
Hmm.
And then they do. But the way he was talked about, and it was because of his pedigree, right? Wins the Hobey Baker, and all that, and he was looked like he had a promising career ahead of him, but he got hurt. And then the Blues are very strange with their D, man. They you look at them on paper, and it's like they look almost like a Spangler Cup team. It's very strange. Justin Falk and Cam Fowler, Ryan Suter's there. I know Torrey Krug's hurt, but like he was kicking around. Nick Leddy's hurt, but he's there still. So it's a very strange makeup they have, and for some reason, Perunovich has never really been able to crack it. And as you said, he is on the smaller side, but the blob makers, the chart mongers, seem to like him. I had a friend of mine who was like, "That's a really good move. I think he's a good player, and it's it costs nothing. So, good for Lou." And this is not someone who looks at Lou in a kind light. Yeah. So, like it seems like the type of trade that the Islander fans you would see. Let's say the Devils made this trade today. We'd be like, why aren't the Islanders doing something like that? They're crying out for help on the blue line. So I think it was a good move on my end. And we forgot to mention in the DeAngelo conversation, he was wearing number 4. I wonder if Scott Perunovich is also going to wear number 4, because I feel like anytime the Islanders do something like a D comes up now, it's just like they just slap number 4 on him. It was Samuel Bolduc wore number 4 already this season, and it's already being circulated. So poor Sam. I wonder if he noticed that down in Bridgeport. But I thought it was funny seeing another number 4 skate around. Although Tony DeAngelo has played 25 minutes this season, and Sam Bolduc, his first and only game this season, and probably last game as an Islander, he played 5:56. So, but that tells you why the Islanders needed to make a trade for someone like Scott Perunovich, because they can't go to Sam Bolduc and be like, "Hey, do you want to come back up?" Because Sam Bolduc has a really nasty habit of passing the puck to the team the Islanders are playing against. So hopefully Scott Perunovich does not have that same habit. And I gotta say, I already trust this guy due to, we talked about his pedigree, but let's talk about his heritage.
Yes.
Scott Perunovich, his Wikipedia page, I was just going to see to check this guy out, be like, okay, I knew a little bit about him through the way they talked about him on 32 Thoughts. Sounds like just your normal college, puck moving defenseman. But you're going to be taken for a loop on a Wikipedia entry when, after the little intro, instead of this, like the playing career is the next segment, it's personal life. So it went, little intro, then personal life. I was like, oh, wow, this must be interesting. Maybe his like parents played in the NHL or something. But no, I'm going to do a little reading here. This is Scott Perunovich's personal life from Wikipedia. Perunovich was born to Jim and Susan Perunovich on August 18th, 1998 in Hibbing, Minnesota. More on Hibbing in a minute. He is of Serbian descent. Perunovich's paternal grandparents, Nikola and Stana, Perunovich immigrated to Hibbing from Montenegro. Nikola was a descendant of the, and I'm sorry for the pronunciation here, the Pajitfi tribe. And Perunovich's ancestors had fought against the invading colonial Ottoman Empire.
Wow.
And then we take a turn. He began figure skating lessons at the age of 4 before eventually joining a hockey team. So I mean, this thing takes you on a real good ride from defending the Balkans from the Ottoman Empire and invading Ottoman Empire force and he began figure skating at the lesson. He began figure skating at the age of 4. But yeah, he went to Hibbing High School. Scott Perunovich did, and a little bit about Hibbing, Minnesota, because I was like, oh, he's another Minnesota guy. There's tons of Minnesota guys in the room already. I wonder if Hibbing's close to maybe Edina or War Road. It's north. It's up there. Okay, so it's closer to War Road than Anders Lee's hometown. But the city was built on mining the rich iron ore of the Mesabi Iron Range, and still relies on that industrial activity today. At the edge of town is the world's largest open pit iron mine, the Hall Rust Mahoning open pit iron mine. It is the hometown of singer-songwriter Bob Dylan, NBA Hall of Famer Kevin McHale, and former governor of Minnesota Rudy Perpich. So there is a lot going on. We talked about baggage for one player. The baggage for this player is a lot more interesting to me. This is taking me on a ride. So I like this defender of the Balkans already.
Yeah, you don't see the Ottoman Empire come up that often in like NHL player bios. It's just sort of it's not a common thing. Although I will say that it's important that you brought that up, because what we know then is that since his family has a history of fighting the Ottomans, that Scott Perunovich is not one to put his feet up. So there you go. That's awful. And now a word from our sponsors. First is always VintageIceHockey.com, where you can get t-shirts, hoodies, jerseys, and more featuring over 100 classic hockey logos. Vintage Ice Hockey now carries a full line of Islanders Anxiety merch featuring our blue and orange brain logo, as well as our Al Arbor and the Island shirts. And as always, our portion of the sales go directly to the Center for Dementia Research. That is VintageIceHockey.com. Try wines from the Pinot Project. They offer a Rosé, a Pinot Grigio, and a Pinot Noir that was named a Top 100 Best Buy by Wine Enthusiast magazine. All are delicious, priced at less than $15 a bottle, and available at local wine shops and at UBS Arena. Learn more at thepinotproject.com. Please drink responsibly.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Just to kind of move on from that one, how on earth, with the amount of times that this guy's name was brought up on 32 Thoughts, I cannot believe that we never heard former 32 Thoughts co-host Jeff Marek bring this up, because that seems like something right up his alley. But no, right. It's hopefully if you're a member of the Islander media or team or whatever, maybe you want to ask Scott Perunovich about this. I would love to hear more about his ancestors fighting off the Ottoman Empire in Montenegro way back when, and also maybe there's some other Islanders whose ancestors have also fought off invading armies or hordes back in the day. So
I think it's more likely that you will see Scott Perunovich around Garden City or Rockville Center getting coffee, and you could ask him yourself. And you could be like, hey, man, do you ever listen to Hardcore History or any of these other podcasts that you usually listen to? And he could tell you exactly. But no, that's pretty interesting. And I'm glad you brought up Hibbing, too, because as I mentioned to you before we came on, I have actually heard of Hibbing, Minnesota. And my daughter and my wife always shake their heads and roll their eyes at me when I say stuff like this. But as a kid, I read a lot of comic books. I watched a lot of cartoons, and I played with a lot of toys. And my favorite toy, as I've mentioned before, if you listen to our Country Club Atmosphere episode, is G.I. Joe. My favorite comic book is G.I. Joe, Real American Hero. My favorite toys, I'm sitting in an office with a whole wall full of G.I. Joe toys. And if you know G.I. Joe toys, you know that all the figures came with file cards and they all had real names and real birthplaces. And one of my favorite figures that I had when I was a kid was Tripwire, who was the mine detector. He came with mines. I guess he would also lay the mines out before detecting them, which I guess is safety first, of course. And I don't remember what his full name was, but I remember that he was from Hibbing, Minnesota. And so when places like that come up, it immediately triggers my brain. And it has been the fact that Hibbing, Minnesota is a real place. I guarantee it was picked because Bob Dylan is from there. Like, it's just somebody wrote it and was like, all right, well, whatever, I'll put it there. I mean, because like there's another character in G.I. Joe named Clutch, who was the driver of the Vamp, the Jeep. And his name was Lance Steinberg. And he was from Asbury Park, New Jersey, which is clearly an allusion to Bruce Springsteen. Right. Oh yeah, it was that. So it was like, the places near you popped up. It was like, that was really cool. But you would also become this sort of like, U.S. geography scholar, like, oh, this guy's from here, this guy's from there. And so Hibbing, Minnesota, immediately, once you said that, I immediately pictured Tripwire, who I not only have the vintage figure of, but I have the new classified size Tripwire. Well.
Another good question for Mr. Perunovich.
Yes,
maybe we'll find out if he's into the same kind of comics that you are. And
sadly, by the time he was born, G.I. Joe was all but dead. It's kind of all but dead.
You never know. I mean,
you never know.
Look, somebody had to supply Wikipedia with the information about his family. So he could be into it. Yeah, and you know what? It reminds me a lot of the Holdsteady, who are actually from Minnesota themselves, but they're very good at dropping random Midwestern towns and cities into songs. And I don't think Hibbing. If Hibbing was mentioned, I think I would know it. But yeah, I mean, it's this is a much more interesting player than I thought, based on all this, and I can't wait to see what he can do. And like DeAngelo, I think he brings something a little different to a blue line that has needed help with. Like, I mean, the Islanders. We've talked so much about how it's insane that these seasons, since the pandemic seasons, have somehow, despite being incredibly hard to replicate, are continuing to replicate themselves.
Right. Yeah.
Like, think about last year. The Islanders lost 2 defensemen in the same week. They picked up Mike Riley off waivers, a Minnesota guy himself. And then they traded with the St. Louis Blues for a defenseman who wasn't playing, Robert Bortuzzo. So even to that, it's like, I wonder if Lou was just like, man, have I done this? It feels like I'm having deja vu. He's going back to the well here, and basically doing he's doing the same thing he did last year. And it wasn't, I know last year they made those deals earlier in the year, but it was kind of a similar situation. Like, the Islanders had started to show some signs of life, and he was like, okay, we gotta add to the team. So yeah, it's crazy, man. Right now, if you go to the team website, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 defensemen listed.
Well, some of them have been exiled to Bridgeport.
No, this is the team site right now on the roster. Yeah. Cholowski, DeAngelo, Dobson, George, Mayfield, Pelech, Perunovich, Pulock, Riley, Romanov.
Wow.
It's 10. Yeah, so we didn't even get into the Huttons and the Old Dukes yet. I mean, and as we joked the other day, like, Travis Mitchell is just like was with the team for a little bit. He didn't play, but he was there.
Right.
Yeah. It's and like, they honestly might pick up a goalie tomorrow. Like, they might. Nobody knows where Varlamov is, but I don't think Jacob Skarek is going to be playing games for the Islanders. They've got a back-to-back coming up soon. So
yeah, right. I mean, if not tomorrow, like, I could see Skarek backing up, because they're just at UBS against the Avalanche. But certainly before they head over to Florida for the weekend, I definitely can see them making a goalie move, and because I don't think Skarek has any kind of they have any kind of confidence in him at all. But the big thing, and we didn't really talk about this yesterday because we were too busy ignoring Tony DeAngelo, but the thing about both of these moves together, and again, it gets to the absurdity of this season and the way it's kind of gone, is that, and this isn't a great shock to anybody, but all of these moves signal something very, very specific, and that is that this team is still pushing for the playoffs. Right. They've lost Dobson. Right. They've lost Pulock. They've lost all year. They lost Pellick for part of this year. They lost Romanov for part of this year. They lost Barzell for part of this year. They lost Duclair for part of this year. They lost, Ziplikov was suspended and now he's scratched. We don't know when he's going to come back because they're winning. And Waugh doesn't want to mess with the roster. We didn't really talk about that either. All of these insane things have befallen this team since the very beginning. Go back to that first game where they blew that lead and lost to overtime to Utah. And yet to them, in game 49 is going to be Tuesday night, they're still in the playoff hunt. And they're not giving up anytime soon. And that's going to make the trade deadline and the break, for the Four Nations tournament very, very interesting. And like I said last night, there are tons of people who are like, and I am one of them, just pull the chute on this. Like it is the hockey gods telling you it's done. Well, it's enough. It's enough. I don't want to see Brock Nelson wear a different jersey any more than anybody else. And I am afraid that what they're going to get back is not going to be helpful or any good or anything. But I just, I don't know, man. Now listen, if I'm wrong and Scott Perunovich scores in the shootout in game 82 and Aaron Dell makes a poke check to send them to the playoffs, well, then you know what? We're just going to ride it out and see what happens. But as of right now, with no offense meant to these folks and the guys who've been on the team the whole time, man, this season to me seems like one in which the hockey gods are begging Lou Lamoriello, just, it's okay. We'll go to sleep and we'll wake up tomorrow and it's another day. So I don't know. Am I crazy? Are you thinking that?
I don't know if I made this analogy this season or last season, but it a lot of times it really does feel like Islander fans and the players, like we're all in the trenches in World War I and we keep going over the top and into no man's land and everyone's like, there's no point to this at all. Like, why are we doing this? And they're like, well, it doesn't matter that the crown keeps telling us to keep pushing forward for this bit of marshlands here in Flanders. So you better get back. You might have just lost to the Chicago Blackhawks, but buddy, dump out your shoes and then put them back on because you're going back over again. And that's what it feels like. And we're getting the new recruits in and they're seeing us covered in muck. Scott Perunovich, a defender of the Balkans, is walking in and seeing all of us, 1,000-yard stairs and whatnot covered in grime. And he's like, what the hell is going on here? We're like, oh, welcome to the island, buddy. Get used to it. Have you ever had a puck deflect off your nose and into the net? Because it probably will happen here.
Yeah.
By the way, we're completely missing out who the goalie that they're going to pick up is.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You have somebody in your sights?
Oh, my gosh. I went to the AHL stat page.
Oh, no.
And I was like, let's see if there's like a name I can throw out there for.
Oh, no. Well, he's
laugh.
making too much money. So
No. Not the man you're thinking of.
Right.
Weird Islander Ken Appleby.
Oh.
Playing for the Charlotte Checkers. Come on home, Ken.
Wow.
Come on home. 904 save percentage in the AHL. He's got a 10-5-1 record. He's playing all right down in Charlotte, Rick DiPietro's old stomping ground.
Wasn't that where Kincaid went?
Yeah, he may be. He's not on the first page here of good goalies, so I don't know if Keith is having a good season. But
oh boy.
We'll bring in. We're gonna have to bring in good old friend Ken Appleby. But I'm gonna lay my money on Keith Kincaid. You pick Ken Appleby, and we'll see who's closer. The guy I was thinking of was Tristan Jarry, and I can't see that happening. And I also want Tristan Jarry. Oh my god.
That was what I was thinking of.
I thought you were thinking of Matt Murray, and I was like, "Oh my god!"
I forgot about him.
You know what's funny is I don't know if we've really talked about it at all in the episodes we've done, but it tells you that how weird the season has been. That Marcus Gatcombe and his 5-game stint is like the 33rd weirdest thing to happen here. That this guy's playing games and. I love that Shannon interviewed his parents at his debut.
Right.
And she was like, "Oh, have you ever been to UBS Arena before?" And they're like, "Yeah, we have. We came for Mark's roommate's NHL debut last season." I was like, "Who the hell could that have been?"
Mm.
And it was Ruslan Iskakov.
Oh, Jesus.
And I was like, I was like, "Oh, good, man. Both of them will probably be one game players." But Gatcomb has been playing well, and like that's the point about to the season is you got Scott Perunovich and Tony DeAngelo walking into this trench. And they've got no idea who anybody on this team is. And go see Private Gatcomb down by
right, yeah.
by the mess hall. He'll tell you where to stay and about the schools. He's learning about it himself. Yeah, I mean it's only going to get weirder. I think I actually said that. What did I say? Last week or this week? Like the only thing that I can tell you is going to happen this season is next. We've got no idea what's coming, and the next time we converse, we're just gonna be like, what is going on, and how did this happen? And it took 24 hours for that to happen.
Yep.
So
basically, yeah, it's been weird, and it's only going to continue to get weird. And again, game 49 is Tuesday night at UBS Arena against the Avalanche. It's an ESPN Plus / Hulu game, so look for it there. And if you're one of the ones in the Cablevision dispute, you can watch this, get your friend's password or whatever and watch it. However, teeing up this monumental matchup is a special guest we're going to bring on. That's right, Mr. College Hockey himself, John Buccigross. And how did we get Bucci? Well, I'll tell you how. We're going to read one of his tweets. And you mentioned the man before, and he's one of the best players in the NHL, and it's only fair that we mention him again here through Bucci, who put out this tweet after the trade went down saying, "This puts 2 Hobey Baker winners on ESPN Plus tomorrow night. Makar versus Perunovich. I'm here on Long Island with Ryan Callahan.
Amazing.
For Avalanche versus New York Islanders." So you heard it from Bucci himself. Makar, Perunovich, same guy. Same thing, same exact player. So my hopes are high now for Perunovich. I'm expecting down Makar.
I'm sure Makar is, has all the respect in the world for the guy. And we owe Cale Makar quite a bit of thanks. We were recording that episode yesterday, right as the Rangers were playing, and I was watching the Avalanche, like the scoreboard, as we were recording. They'd go up 2 goals, and then they blow the 2-goal lead, and that game concluded. It was such a Rangers game. The Avalanche were up 4-3 in the third. They scored a goal. It was waved off for goaltender interference, even though Alexis Lafreniere was the one who interfered with Igor Shesterkin, and the Avalanche didn't even challenge it. So I was like, you got to be kidding me. Rangers obviously tie it up off of a Artemi Panarin whiff. He whiffed, and because he whiffed, it threw Mackenzie Blackwood's timing off, and it floated over his head and into the goal with like 4 minutes left. No quit in New York. And, of course, there's 4 minutes left in a close game. The Rangers have to get their customary power play. So they do that. They don't score, and Mr. Eminently Reasonable himself, Will Borgen, doesn't get nobody from the bench shouts that Cale Makar is coming off the bench out of the penalty box, so he passes it to Cale Makar, and the Avalanche score with like 15 seconds left in regulation and win. And boy, it was maybe the sweetest win of the season, including Islander wins for me, because everything was still following the usual Ranger script, and it was like the hockey gods were like, "Look, we gave you everything we need. We're just gonna leave this one to you guys. You guys got to win in the overtime. We're gonna hit the road. It's Sunday night. We got to get out of here." And then that was not enough. So that doomed the Rangers. I'm just turning off the lights with that little time left in regulation. And there's all this now discourse about whether or not the Rangers lost that game because they fired their trainer 2 years ago, because he was usually the guy who yelled when the guy came out of the penalty box. It's like, thank you for this.
What happened to the slapping of the stick, man?
Igor and Artemi Panarin didn't back check. Igor didn't slap the stick. It was all this fundamentals 101. But that's the Rangers for you. They're a team like that. So I did want to mention that. So Cale Makar, when he gets announced as a starter tomorrow, maybe at UB, I might be there tomorrow. We'll give him a little hand and say thank you for that play yesterday. He didn't score the goal, but he actually had his hat trick goal was the one that was waved off. So
he
thank
had a great
you for that
game
performance.
I understand. No, and actually, don't forget, Cale Makar should be thanking the Islanders, because if you remember that first, whatever it was, week or so of the season, the Islanders went to Denver, beat the Avalanche, and Makar was so mad at his own performance that he then went on to tear the league a new one for the next month and a half. And he still kind of kept on going. He hasn't really slowed down that much.
Right.
But, the Avalanche have been very, very up and down this season, which is sort of unusual for them. But he has not been. Him and McKinnon are still out there. So, if anything, that loss to the Islanders is really what kicked off another superb Makar season. And if he's still thinking about that, I would be very, very nervous if I'm an Islander for Tuesday, because he's going to take it out on them probably, and go nuts.
Well, he might be intimidated by Scott Perunovich.
Yeah, maybe. Oh my God, they got another kid. They got another Hobey Baker win over there.
Oh my God,
we're done. Anyway,
God, Bucci-Cross and Callahan.
Yeah, if you're going to watch that game, by the way, put it on mute.
The ratings are going to be.
If Chris King and our friend Greg Picker are calling that game, put that on and then watch the broadcast that way. But I'll have it down. If it's with shoes and weeks, it's okay. But yeah, Callahan and Bucci-Cross is definitely going to be a no-go. But yeah, so the Scott Perunovich era starts on Tuesday. We'll see how it goes. We're going to close it up right here. Become a member of patreon.com/Islanders Anxiety for ad-free episodes and bonus content. Join for free to get announcements and our weekly release calendar. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Audible.com, YouTube Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please leave us a review where you can. Our theme song is Morning Haze by Family Dinner. Listen to more of their music on Spotify. Their latest album is called God Looks Out for Fools. Read Lighthouse Hockey every single day. If you need to know anything about Scott Perunovich, go read Dom's article if you haven't already, because he's watched this guy play. He doesn't have to make up what he is, because he's actually watched him play. So he's the expert. So he knows. If this wasn't like an impromptu thing, I would have tried to get him on, but we just decided like this afternoon what's going on. So thank you, Dom, for all you do. Islanders Anxiety podcasts are part of the Fans First Sports Network. Shop vintageIceHockey.com. Try wines from the Pinot Project. Mike, where can everybody find you on Twitter?
The Big Lebowski with 2 E's.
Follow Mike at the Big Lebowski. Normally, I would give you the final word here, but we're going to do something a little bit different here. We will record an episode next week. Like I said, it's going to be on Monday because the Islanders playing at 6:00 on Sunday. But here's a little teaser, a little to whet your appetite for what it will come in the next episode. Okay, here we go. Next time on Master Penn's Theater. It happened again on Friday, with people who know better spreading Sidney Crosby trade rumors. Enough is enough. It's stupid. It isn't funny. And it's disrespectful to a person who doesn't deserve such treatment. My column. : Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.